like I said, it's sustainable, but there are challenges. There are things we need to do to ensure that it is sustained. Now, the first thing we need to do, and which we are planning, which we have already started doing actually, is to take care of the previously armed youths. Now, by our estimates, there were about 11,000 armed youths. For us, we think we can stretch to about 20,000 armed youths. So how do you take care of those armed youths? Two, how do you take care of those that were not armed? Because if you take care of those that were armed alone, there will be this feeling that there's reward for violence. And so the ones that were peaceful might start picking up arms. Now, in dealing with this, we are working with federal government, that's the various state governments of the Niger Delta. We are working with the federal government to ensure that we have camps to deal with the previously armed youths. For us in Delta State, we have 2 camps that we have put some of our youths. But the truth is that, as of today, the camps are not enough to take all the previously armed youths. So the strategy and the arrangement is while preparing for more camps within the Niger Delta and outside the Niger Delta, we are trying to take care of the armed youths in their natural environment they have been staying, that is in the camps. Now, there are also some groups who need education, who probably stop their education somewhere. So a scholarship program is even arranged for them to go to secondary school and to go to the university. But at the end of the day, what do we do to ensure that they live a normal life? That is the challenge we are having, and that is the program that is on ground. So that is the first thing, to be able to deal with the youths, both previously armed and the non-armed youths. Then the second challenge that we are having, and that's what we are attending to, is the issue of infrastructure. Now, for the states also, the states also do their own in terms of infrastructure. We as Delta State, we have, during the crisis, a lot of the women and youths were children were displaced. We have taken them back to their communities, and we are trying to rebuild the communities as new towns, entirely, totally new towns.
Now, we all know that Nigeria is an oil-producing country that is heavily dependent on oil as a resource. 30 to 40% of Nigeria's oil production comes from the Niger Delta, and of course there's the perennial complaint that the revenues are generated in the Niger Delta. They feed and fuel the coffers of the federal government, and nothing comes back to the people who need it the most. In the context of a program to deregulate the oil industry, are you very concerned on how that is going to change the dynamic of oil production, or in fact that it may actually improve the situation?
Yes, the issue of the petroleum industry. Now, the main challenge about the petroleum industry are twofold. One, the country has depended so much on oil. And there's a strong campaign that Nigeria should move from depending so much on oil to other resources. For us as a Delta State, our strategy of economic growth is also creating a Delta State without oil. And what does this mean? That if the oil finishes tomorrow, we should be able to have an economy that's not dependent on oil. So we are using the oil revenue to create infrastructure that will support the growth of the economy in other areas, especially in the area of agriculture. And I know that the federal government also has a strategy of creating an economy. Now, the second thing about the oil is the participation of the people of the oil-producing communities in the oil in the oil business. Up till now, they have virtually not been part of the oil business. But what has happened now as post-Amnesty is that the federal government is divesting its 19% out of the 60% ownership of the oil companies, and 10% of this 90% will go to the oil-producing communities. And when this goes to the oil-producing communities, now it will have the effect of the people are able to participate in the oil business, and they will also, hopefully, if properly planned, be able to use the money not just for infrastructure development, but also investment in other businesses that will sustain the region.
We talk peace and a comprehensive peace for the Niger Delta, but that doesn't necessarily alleviate the perception and the fear that people have about investing in the region, the fear of criminality, the fear of kidnapping, the fear of violence. Despite your assurances, what are you doing as a confidence-building measure for the international community to invest in the country and know that their property rights are secure, physically they are secure, and that their investment is secure?
Let me say this. The Niger Delta is not the only violent area of this world. There are a lot of places across the world that are violent, and investors are still going there. There's no part of this world that is 100% peaceful. There are countries where, as you are coming out to the airport, there's fear of violence. You see soldiers carry guns, you see police carry guns in international airports. That shows that there's violence even in those countries that claim to be secured, in quotes. There's violence in the Middle East, yet investors are going in there. You see, to be able to deal with violence, you also have to develop the place. Something is making these people angry. Something is making them angry. So if you run away that you will not invest or you will not, of course, the problem will continue. But the more you come, the more investment you bring in, the more the youths are employed. And the more the youths are employed, the less the pool that is left for criminal activity. This is very key. And that is why, as a state government, we have this three-point agenda of peace and security, infrastructure development, and human capital development. And the three are interwoven. And that is why we are also going into this climate change program. That, look, we need to clean the waters, we need to clean the soil so that people can have their traditional occupation of farming and fishing. And with that, they can first of all basically feed themselves. And when they feed themselves, they are less angry. And when they are less angry, they are less likely to be violent.